Hello, design system friends. Welcome to our video. This time we want to talk about design tokens, which is one of your favorite topics. And let's be honest, nobody has really figured it out how to do it. That's why today we want to talk about design tokens and share some hacks. With me, I have one of the best experts I know, who is going to talk about design tokens. With me, you will learn what design tokens are, why you need them, and also we will be doing a huge workshop at our Into Design Systems conference. So you will get some information about that as well. Welcome, Sam. Are you ready to talk about design tokens?
I'm ready. I feel like it's all I talk about every day, all day. Maybe that's a gift and a curse.
Super cool. So for people who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sam. You might know me online as Sam I Am Designs. I'm a freelance design systems expert, and I currently live in the world of design tokens. I am working a lot right now with Tokens Studio to help them launch the V2 of their plugin and produce a whole bunch of content so that everybody who is interested in design tokens really feels like they can approach it. I feel like up until now, if you want to learn, where do you go? Where do you read? Who do you listen to? Who do you believe? And everybody's answer is, I don't know. It depends. This article is 5 years old, but I still like it. Technology has changed since 5 years ago, you know? So we're really trying to invest a bunch of time and effort into bringing the community up to speed so that we can actually move on to something bigger and better than tokens even in the future.
Oh, that's really cool. At Into Design Systems, we love to share hands-on practical tips because we are tired of, talking only. So we want to see how experts operate in their design systems so you can take away something for you can use in your daily work, right, Sam? But before we do that, let's start very basic. Let's say, please tell me, what are design tokens? Could you explain them with a simple example and as if to a 5-year-old? So I have basically no idea what design tokens are.
Yeah, I love that. So a 5-year-old, if you were to ask them, why did you do something? They'd be like, I don't know. But if you were to watch them back, they would say, oh, I did this because of that. And there would be a whole process. But you ask them, hey, go pick your favorite stuffed toy and they bring it to you. And like, why did you choose this one? I don't know. So design tokens for designers are the way to capture our decisions so that when we hand over our stuffed animal or a button to an engineer, why did you do it this way? Our answer is not, I don't know. We have all these things captured in a format that we can share. So a design token is a way of capturing and expressing our design decisions. And they're written in this common language that can be transformed by engineers into whatever programming language they want. And so there's a lot less of this back and forth of, oh, let me zoom into this Figma screen and see a red line of every individual thing, and then maybe I copy and paste it right or I don't. No, they see a token, the token lives in code. So now we have like a source of truth for our design decisions that live in code that we can share with engineers. And a lot of designers, when we talk about tokens and the fact that they're a shared source of truth and they live in code, they get what I call GitHub face. It looks like this. And they're like, I don't do code. I don't do GitHub. I'm not doing any of that. And that's why we have amazing tools like Token Studio, which allow us to operate in an interface which is no code, capture our design decisions, speed up our workflow. And it does all the magic under the hood to take those design decisions, put them in code, actually pushes them to code for engineers. And now we have this shared source of truth. And so that's what design tokens are. And that's why they're so powerful. So way to capture your design decisions, get them out of your design tool and into code, share them with engineers, and speed up the process between design and development. And it is actually possible to have it so that when they build the components with the tokens, if I change the value of the token, like I want my buttons to be rainbow because it's Pride Month or something, I can do that in Figma and it will just ping them and say, oh, hey, there's a change from Sam. And they're like, yeah, all right, I'll approve that. And then it's on the website. Like you can do that with tokens. That's the power of the future of this, automation between design and development.
Wow, that's huge. But if you know the benefits and what design tokens are, so many people find it difficult to name them. Where should they even start? So if you ask many people or experts, they always say, well, it depends. But there must be a schema, a guide. Where can I start? Is there anything, any examples? Even if I just want to start with small examples like my colors.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that?
Well, this is what we're going to do at the conference is we're going to blow this whole thing out of the water and give people something they can do to take home and start using right away. And I'm doing a lot of research for Token Studio, and I just happened to ask on a Saturday afternoon, what do you call like your different levels of your decisions? Because the design token is a decision, cool. Like the top part, like my color is this hex code. What do you call that? Okay, well, there was 8 different names for that. Okay, but now I want to rename that, hex code into something that means something to me. This is like my brand primary color. What do you call that layer of your design decision? Again, 8 or 9 different names for that. The bottom part, where I actually apply this color to my button. What do you call that thing? A little less, debate there, but everybody has different names for even the way that we describe our decisions. I had like 65,000 impressions on this tweet that I made and a post on LinkedIn. And I just thought, 65,000 moments spent thinking about this topic. Like it's obviously something to dig into. And so then I went on like an ADHD designer rabbit hole tunnel vision. And I was like, who can I talk to about this? Like what are the actual answers here? So I talked to the team at Token Studio. I talked to the people writing Style Dictionary, which is the tool that transforms the tokens and gets them into the languages we need in code. And like, what is going on? Well, no one can agree because nobody will have any suggestions or opinions on what to call things. And we tend to make things more complicated than they need to be. So that's one part of the problem. The other part is designers seem to think that they don't need to name anything. If you ever ask a designer, like, do you name your layers? Or sometimes I look at a file and it's got, frame number 10,565,105. Like, that's okay if you're doing things in an iterative environment and you want to be quick. But when we're sharing with code and moving our decisions to engineers, we have to do things properly. And the name actually provides the ID for the design decision. So if I name this token brand colors primary default, that's now the ID for this design decision. And I don't really want to change the IDs of the design decisions that are attached to my components because computers don't know. Like, have you ever tried to download the same file to a folder and it's like, no, that doesn't work. I have to change the name now so we don't have the same name, right? Or you go to search for a name and you think you were searching for the right name, but you don't find the right name at all because you forgot to rename the thing. And now you have like Untitled 700 as opposed to my family photo from 2023. So the names are pretty important. And actually, as I do this research and I start thinking about things and I'm helping, people using Token Studio all the time. I'm looking at their design decisions and I'm like, how do you find anything in here? Like, I'm looking at these tokens you've applied to this button and like, I have no idea where in your architecture this is coming from. I don't understand. And they're like, well, I don't know how to tell you other than I just know. Well, that's not sustainable. What if you pass that on to somebody else and then they can't do anything with it? So this top layer, like I call them the options, it's all the options you have to choose from. If you were going to repaint your room, it's like every palette in the paint store, you have endless options, but then you take one home and you stick it on the wall and you're like, okay, I've made some decisions, and you kind of mark those off. And so we have options at the top, we have decisions in the middle, and then we apply them to components. So for the sake of keeping things consistent, this is what I call them. Call them whatever you want. I don't want to say that it depends, but like, this is kind of the hierarchy. And in my mind, if we name them a little differently in each of those layers of my architecture, all of a sudden I know where things are coming from, right? So if I had all of my tokens, all of my design decisions for a whole project, thousands likely, and they're all in one long list, which is actually what they look like when they get them in code. So I've got 3,000 tokens in a long line of code, and I search for color. If they all start with the word color, do I know where they're coming from in my architecture? Do I know what decision they are? Do I know? I don't know. So let's change the way that we write the names so that they tell us who the design decision is for. Where does it belong in my system? What am I intending this to be used for? When does it apply? How did I make this decision? What is the value? So can I get that who, what, where, when, why, and how of my decisions into my tokens by looking at the name? And that's actually the whole goal of this workshop that I'm going to share is, okay, we have these options. Let's name them like this. And then we're going to make some decisions, my brand colors, for example. Let's name them like this, a little different. And then we have component tokens. And if you decide to go there, let's name those a little differently so that they have all the pieces that engineers need to understand our design decisions. And also, like, I don't know, maybe my PM or my manager or the new designer that starts a month from now or my future self can actually look at these names and understand what these decisions are for without needing a glossary or an index or a computer to, unlock an abbreviation of some kind. Because like some of these names are so technical, like btn.comp. whatever. Like, what is this for? Like the tokens are for right. Like the tokens are for humans. So let's make them human readable names. Right. So that's the whole goal of the whole workshop. And so I have a Fig Jam board. I'm going to do it in a tactile way. So I know Romina is really into spreadsheets and automating with spreadsheets, which is great if you're a spreadsheet person. I am an actual spreadsheet person, but for these things, I love to create like a map of what I'm doing and visualize it. So I think that's what we're going to do.
Amazing. Yeah, the workshop we are talking about all the time is a session at Into Design Systems conference, which is taking place May 15. It's a 3-day design systems online conference. And if you're watching this later, there are also recordings available. So we thought it's super hard to name tokens, and we finally want to figure out how to do that. We also want to learn how to automate them. So we gave you an extended session. You'll be doing a session with Romina Kaucic from the Design Systems Guide. It's a really, really cool guide for beginners and pros. There's always something new to learn. So your session is called How to Name and Automate Design Tokens, right? So you both will be doing this workshop at 60 minutes plus Q&A. I hope that's enough for people to get the idea how to name their tokens, but I'm pretty sure because you have also prepared a very nice FigJam file. Besides that, we have some really, really, really cool talks, and we love our talks to be hands-on, practical. We want all the nuggets and all the gems, and not only, talking and slides. You want to see demos. People want to get the files and templates. So we have Nathan Curtis, we have Deborah from Atlassian speaking, Cynthia from Pinterest, so many cool sessions. It's 20 hours of content in total. Can you believe that, Sam? 20 hours. We are so much into design systems.
Oh, I'm so excited. And actually, I've been speaking to some of the other people who are speaking and presenting at the conference, and a little birdie told me that there is a session on AI and how to use GPT and prompting in design systems. And there might even be a little thing in there about how to maybe use AI to automate some of the naming things. So you could, take stuff from Romina and my workshop, take that and use the information from the AI talk to build a prompt that would allow you to automate this once you get the hang of doing it in either way, which I think is so cool that we're all kind of, looking at what everybody else is presenting and trying to create some value and some harmony in the content, which is super exciting.
Awesome. Yes, there are a few spots left. It's almost booked out. So make sure to get your ticket or your recording pass. And now let's have a look, Sam, at your FigJam file, because I'm super excited to see it.
Probably going to change a little bit because, as a designer with ADHD, that last minute is where all the magic happens.
Oh, yeah.
However, I have some, just some interesting things about design tokens and the anatomy of them. What we talked about today, we'll go over that. Then I've got some really cool examples of some well-written names, right? The point here is like, I have a token with a name on it. And if I look at the value, this is another name, theme colors. Oh, I know this is a theme color. I assume that there's probably a light theme and a dark theme that might change. Okay, cool. That one's coming from my device colors. So maybe it's different on a TV versus a tablet versus a billboard. I don't know. Then from here, it's coming from my brand colors. Well, all right, maybe I have 3 brands. Maybe I have 5 brands. I could have many. I don't know. And then from here, it's coming from that top level. I have this color token here with my value in it. Something like a primitive is what we normally call them. So this is a beautiful example of a very complex design system structure where you have multiple brands, multiple themes, multiple devices, and one token sitting on a button. And I can tell where these decisions come from. I can chase it up the tree just because I was thoughtful with the way I named my token. So this is kind of a great example of how we want things to work when we're moving on. And the way that it's going to work is if you're doing this async, because I can't go through this with everybody together, right? So the orange ones here are some instructions, follow them along. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sit and you're going to kind of think about at a high level. I like to think about one component as an example, like what things are changing and what things stay the same, right? So do I have a color mode that's changing light and dark? I would make a little bucket for that, those sorts of things. And so when you're done, you create this little map. And if you have a very simple system, I'm so jealous, then you might have just color modes that change. And maybe you have some brands, maybe you don't. And maybe the dimensions on your button or your card, whatever you're thinking about, are always the same. So they would go here. And now we kind of understand the map a little bit. That example of the button I gave you before, that's coming from this guy here. This is pretty complicated, right? So I have multiple brands, I have multiple themes, I have multiple devices. Maybe there's some platform things in there, like maybe I have an Android app and an iOS app, and they all have different things that tie into this. But now I can start to think about these decisions, right? So my component tokens, I want to know, am I looking at like my roomy theme or my classic theme? Like what's the density like as a theme? And that's coming from platform colors. Those will be, or platform dimensions, and those will be different depending on the device or whatever it is. And from the colors, those are coming from my brands, and they're just going to kind of split off. And once I have this map in my mind, now I can start to actually do some naming. So the primitive ones are in the blue because, at the top of the map, it's blue. And those are pretty simple, right? We have, what is the property? What group does it belong in? And what's the identifier? Because the names, remember, they all have to be unique because they're the ID for the design decision. So for colors, it's in my gray palette, and it's number 100. So that's pretty easy. And I've given examples of colors, dimensions, typography. And here on this side, these are all pre-done stickies that you literally can just drag over if you don't know how to name them or how to type them or whatever it is. And you can just drag them over. The middle part is that theme layer where things get a little bit messy and we have more things to document. We're going to write these ones a little differently. So the first thing is, where in my world does it come from? Okay, it's my brand colors or it's my theme colors, for example. And then we talk about the category. So is it my strongest button? And is it the background color when I hover? That sort of stuff. Like that could be in these sort of theme decisions, that middle part where I've made the decisions and things are changing. So this template is a little different. It starts with, where in my architecture does it live? And then if you decide to go down to component specific tokens, and just as like a little surprise note here, the more triangle your map starts to look, the more important those component tokens are at the bottom. If yours is pretty straight, you might not need them at this time. Your engineers will love you if you get component specific, if your architecture gets more and more complicated, because it helps the machines kind of sort their life out a little bit, right?
I like that. Can you zoom in a little bit more, please?
On this one?
Yeah, the examples. That's what I read. What I need right now for my designers.
I'm gonna give you. I'll give you like the preview of the file, so you can give me some feedback. And just so the folks know, like this file is, I know it says V4, but this is V4 of the polished version. I've been working on this for 6 months, and people in the Token Studio community have been so generous. Like people, how do I do this? Like, oh, I've got a secret file. You want to give me some feedback? And so there's been a lot of people who have like, oh, and we're at about like 40, 50 people now, and the structure just works. It works for just about everybody.
Wow. So 6 months of research. Yeah. And this file people can have at the Into Design Systems conference.
Yep, they're going to get a copy of the file for sure. And
Wow.
I have some other stuff too that I can share after. But when we name the component specific tokens, this is where everyone gets like, oh, they get so long and scary and hairy. This is like, it's technically a component naming API, which we won't say too loud for the designers in the back, but the engineers on the team love this. They love it. It's been floated by the folks that work on Style Dictionary, the Token Studio team, a bunch of different engineers, and they're like, more of this, more of this, more of this. So I know that if you need to go there, I know it's complicated and scary, but this will hopefully narrow it down for you. And you've got the same level of examples here, but I also went one step further. And like in Token Studio, there's a very limited number of things that we can tokenize. We have containers, things that hold stuff. We have icons or images or attributes, and then we have text. And I literally wrote the names for all of those properties. So you're like, okay, it's typography, it's color, it's whatever. You can just pick these up and drag them and fill in your pieces. So now you have this template where you're like, okay, I have this. I'm going to duplicate this down here. And now I'm going to change this from this, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to move it over there. And you can just drag and drop these little pieces to create your names. And this whole block right here is the name of a token. And I can tell from looking at it that my actions, my CTA button, it's brand colored, it's tier 1. For me, that means my strongest emphasis. So maybe it's solid in this design system, who knows? It's the default state, so not on hover or pressed or whatever you want to call it. It's for the label, actually. And this token is talking about typography. So I can tell from looking at this token exactly who, what, where, when, and why I made this decision. And if I looked at the value, it's going to tell me, okay, the typography is coming from the brand or the system or the platform. So you can start to chase your decisions up the tree just by being thoughtful with the way you name them. And I also just want to point out, which we'll talk about in the workshop, is like, this is your template. Go talk to your team, talk to your engineers, figure out the way that you want to do it that makes sense for you. You know, component tokens are really meant for machines and engineers. So if they like this, cool. If they want it done a different way, whatever, who cares? Just pick a template for yourself and stick with it. And you can use tools like GPT to take this and paste it in there, and it will format it into a token for you. Like there's all sorts of things that you can do once you get the hang of this naming and you use these templates to kind of automate your workflow.
Wow. I love this. Finally, there is a guide. This is amazing. So I can just take the sticky notes and put them together, and then I will have my token name. That's
right.
so cool. Yeah, that's super
right.
smart. Really, really cool. I cannot wait for your workshop, Sam. Thank you so much for putting this together. That's amazing. Finally, I have an idea how to name tokens. And you know, with all these tools, you can also transform it and copy paste it to ChatGPT, and it will give you like the format, and then you can copy paste it, like you said, because we will also have a session with Edward talking about how to, you know, do stuff in ChatGPT for your design system work, so you can save a lot of time. Really, really cool. I cannot wait for this workshop, Sam.
Thank you.
May I ask you one more question? Because
let's do it.
People are super interested to know when to use Figma variables, when to use Token Studio. Does it make sense to use both? Okay. Can you help us with that, please?
I can. A token is not a variable. So a token is a design decision. I can have that token in Figma. I can choose to have that token show as a variable or as a style or just as a design property in Figma. So remember, the token is platform agnostic. I can take it and I can move it. I can do transform. I can't do that with a variable. A variable is a way to represent a token or to maybe even try to create a token. And they're the first people to admit that it's not a token. So that's the first thing. And so if you want to use variables because your team is very comfortable with them, then do it. But you could use a tool like Token Studio to power your variables. So you have your tokens in Token Studio, and then you create your variables and they're linked together. So when your designers are working with variables, you can actually see them attached to the tokens. You can do the same thing with styles. And the interesting thing is if you're building components with Token Studio and you apply the tokens directly to the component, And they're showing as variables because that's how you set it up, and that's cool. But what happens if someone just deletes your whole variable collection? Boop, done.
Oh no.
If you were just using variables, like what do? You've got ghost variables to deal with, you have broken variables, or you're rolling it back, or like what do you do? But when you apply with tokens, like that token is not going away no matter what. So you can delete all of the styles, all the variables in your system, and you just run Token Studio again. And oh, guess what? Your variables are back and it's showing on your components as a variable. Or oh, you've decided that you hate variables and now you're going straight back to styles. Okay, fine. We'll just flip a switch and now they're showing a style. So you can use tokens to communicate with these tools and to find ways to express or, represent your design decisions, which you've captured as a token. So I think it's a part of a tool, and not everybody wants to use a plugin like Token Studio, and that's fine. But for design systems, people and professionals who are really trying to scale their brands and scale their businesses, use the tools that help you do that faster, and then meet designers where they're at. Apply styles, I don't care, do whatever you want. Because I have my stuff and it's so solid that no matter what you do, it's not going to impact me and my work. I'll be able to scale it forever and ever and ever.
Nice. Yeah, that really makes sense. I was also thinking, does it even work to create a multi design system? I call it multi-product, multi-theme, multi-platform, multi-brand with variables.
I mean, if you were supporting a number within the limit of whatever your plan will allow you to do, sure. However, what most people I talk to who are working, like let's say they work for an agency and they've got lots of different clients, is they use tokens, they've got a system, and then they'll spin up a version of it in its own files. And if that client wants variables, okay, here you go. And then they do something different for the next client. So those tokens become the source of truth that stays stable across all their projects. And then they can just, do a thing for it. You can do that sort of stuff with variables. It's entirely possible, especially if you have the highest tier enterprise plan where you can have 40 modes. But for a lot of people, if you're just on the regular pro plan or the regular org plan, you get 4 modes in Figma, and sometimes that's just not enough.
Mm-hmm. But with Token Studio, does it also mean they're platform agnostic? So I can take all this stuff and use it in a different future design tool or wherever I like. And with variables, I can kind of only use them in Figma, right?
Yeah. I mean, fun fact, you can pull your variables out of your Figma file into Token Studio and then move them into code if you wanted to. Like that's something that we have built in. It's like a feature. But variables are as today when we're recording, who knows what will happen with their next release. They're platform specific to Figma, and there's no easy way or no native way to pull them out of there and into code. So you need a tool or something else to do that. But Token Studio is totally platform agnostic.
Okay, so I can take this stuff from Token Studio and use any different design tool, like, I don't know, Penpot or whatever I like. I'm not locked into this Figma echo space.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And actually, Token Studio will be native inside Penpot if you're exploring the Penpot world. So our team is actually working with Penpot to have Token Studio be a part of the native experience there, which is really cool to see that come together.
Wow. So we will have real design tokens in a design tool.
That's right.
Finally, right?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I always tell people, if you're building a basic UI kit and you want to scale it a little bit, it's fine to use variables. But if you think about the future, do you want to scale the system and do you want to be dependent on, one technology or not? So this is also something to consider because it's such a, high investment to spend time figuring out how to do design tokens to set everything up. And then 1 year later, you can refactor all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like if you were taking on a new sport or a hobby, right? Like, oh, do I need to buy the best equipment ever right now, the first time I've ever tried it? Probably not. You're probably okay to just use what you have around you. Like I want to learn to play tennis. Like, can I do it in my running shoes? Like, you can. But eventually you're going to realize, like, oh, hey, my running shoes are limiting the way I can move. So maybe it's time to get tennis shoes, right? Now I need tools specific to the fact that I'm like at a point in my journey where the things that are there for me right now are not enough and I need to upgrade. And so that's what I normally say to teams, like just start using variables, start like, and then when you've maxed out, when you're at the point where you've done all you can do and you're like, this is still not enough for me, that's a really good time to migrate to tokens because you've got a good idea about how things work and what your needs are and how to map out your design decisions so that you can start to do things in a more efficient way to scale.
Nice. And also you're representing design teams of one and small teams, right? That's what we really think about a lot at Into Design Systems, how to provide content, you know, for people who have only a small team, who are there on their own, figuring out how to create design system stuff, who are probably overwhelmed. So I'm super happy that you are hosting the Into Design Systems conference with me, and we do this workshop because I believe this will be super, super helpful for teams and, you know, design system teams of one.
Yeah, I was a design system team of one for 3.5 years before I started, you know, working with a team like Token Studio or any other consulting team where I have more designers to work with. And truthfully, you know, as I'm talking to some of the folks that we have presenting, some of them work at some very big companies, but like they are alone in the thing that they work on.
Mm-hmm.
They might have one person that they can talk to, but really, like, even if you work at a big company, design systems inherently is kind of like a lonely job. Maybe that's why there's so many introverts in our community because we're very quite happy to just sit by ourselves. So it's nice to have a space where you can communicate with other weirdos who are into the same stuff that you are. Like, hey, let's talk about buttons. I hate that example. We should think of a better one. But, you know, it's like you have people you can talk to about these things and do it in a way that doesn't feel scary or weird or whatever. And we're all kind of fighting the same battles. We're just doing it in different places.
Yes, that's why we created Into Design Systems, a place for creative weirdos who want to hack together design systems, who are lost in their design system work, overwhelmed. So we can come together and learn from each other. And yeah, so cool to have you, Sam. I'm looking forward to your workshop. Thank you so much for teaching us or telling us about the design tokens. I cannot wait to see you at the conference.
Well, thank you for having me and for giving me a platform to work towards. Like, who else would sit there and obsess for 6 months about the naming of tokens other than somebody who has a platform to share the information? You know what I mean? So thank you for giving a space for all of us who are weird and obsessed about these things that most people don't care to understand. And you know, we can all jam out about it. I'm super excited. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Very welcome.